Scott Cottier, Spec Performance Consulting. What it's like being the head trainer for the New Zealand SAS. I had the pleasure to reconnect with an old friend of mine today, Scott Cottier. Scotty was my physical training instructor in the New Zealand Army, and then also in New Zealand SAS group when I was a commando. So this was a really familiar ground to tread on and amazing to share his story. Scott's goal after becoming a PTI was always to become the head trainer for the SAS. And he accomplished this in 2006, and he served there for 6 years, improving the application of physical training for the Tier 1 Special Forces unit. And I can say from personal experience, he did a great job and also caused me a great deal of pain and sweat. He is a man who epitomizes the unrelenting pursuit of excellence and has a wealth of knowledge about functional elite fitness, and now uses this to improve success in corporates, teams, and individuals. Scott takes what looks at first sight to be an unconventional and brutal approach in applying his craft. But you will find out in the show, after training such high-performing individuals and warfighters, you'll find his approach refreshingly honest and applicable. Now listen in for the story I tell about when we had him in the kill house with my live rounds whizzing past his head. He has a great sense of humor, and it's been an honor to watch his successful journey and positivity. You can find Scott on email, scott@specforce.co.nz. Hi, I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, high performance living coach from eatwellmoveworld.net, and you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Subscribe for more amazing tips, interviews, and wisdom from phenomenal guests, and get your free copy of my 5-day meal plan and exercise ebook at realketonesaustralia.com. This show is sponsored by realketonesaustralia.com, the best and most effective ketone supplement on the market to reduce anxiety, enhance brain performance, and supply twice as much energy as glucose. You can find all my former shows on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google, Amazon, and Libsyn. Thanks for watching and listening. And we're live. Welcome to the Eat Well Move Well radio show. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. And welcome to a friend of mine, Scott Cottier, Director of Spec Force Performance Consulting. Scotty, just had a great chat there, and it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
No, cheers. Awesome. Really appreciate it, and really happy to be here. Awesome.
Mate, we've known each other for quite some time. I don't know if you remember when I first met you, but you've got such a background. You really came to fruition in my life as a physical training instructor in the regular force back in 1 battalion or Linton military camp, and then of course in the unit up at 1NZ SAS group in later years. So you've got a hell of a story, man. Physical training instructor. Where did that sort of kick off? How did you get into PTI? And let's take you to sort of Linton military camp, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, well, I joined the army, sort of like Moo Moffat joined the cadet 1991, so a year after him. So 16 and a half, or 17 just turned, and really only did it because I got 4 days off school. So I kept applying and get the next day off school, and I went to it. Next thing I got a letter, I've been accepted, which wasn't anywhere in the plan that I had to join the army. No one in my family's ever been in the army, so yeah, I was an outcast. So I joined and started as a truckie for 7 years, and as one person, Greg Muller, come up to me. He was our PDI at the time and said, "Man, you're wasting your time in transport. You should either go to SAS or be a PDI." The SAS never really was something I'd be interested in because I can't stop talking and I can't sit still for 5 minutes, and I couldn't live in the bush for any more than a day and have to live out of a plastic bag. So I went the PDI route, and so 1998 passed on that, and probably the best thing I've done in my life to make me what I am today.
Yeah, isn't it funny the great things the military gives us that the civilians world doesn't realize. Now on that, and I've spoken to a few military guys in the US lately, in New Zealand, you've got to actually pass a physical training instructor, and for want of a better word, a fitness instructor, but military style. You got to pass a selection for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when I was at the unit, I told everyone that ours was way harder than their selection, so it probably was in my eyes. Oh yeah, we're doing it, and it's a different selection. Like you still can't. It's a trade. There's only the MPs, the SAS, and the PDIs that you have to internally do a selection or be selected to attend in the New Zealand Army. And she was pretty. It's a different one. You're running a lot. You're on the go the whole time. You do get fed, but then you're outside marking time afterwards, and you're just doing a lot of PT stuff. So there's no comparison, and we're looking for different people. So PDI is allowed, confident, need to be in front of people, making the right decisions and taking a class, encouraging and motivating through voice and action, where the unit is a lot different for what they're after. So if anyone tries to compare, you could never do that.
No.
But then after that, once we pass that, we then go on to our primary course, and back in those days, it was 9 months long. And so that's at Woodburn at the Air Force Base, and pretty intense because you're not just doing study, you're doing class taking, gymnastics, you've got all the sports to do, you've got so much more. So when you come out, you're quite a capable, well-rounded individual that sort of can do a lot of things rather than just be specific at one. And then after 18 months, you go back and do an advanced course. And in nowadays, it's shorter now, but that was about 4.5 to 5 months, I think. And that's into kinesiology, your biomechanics, into your major studying. And so you do come back after that course very well or knowledgeable and very sort of a person with a lot of tools in their box to be able to use in all sorts of fitness, either sports teams or individual.
Yeah, it's amazing what a PTI does. I mean, I remember the first time I went from civilian, I was a what they call here reserve in New Zealand, a territorial, so part-time soldier. And when I went to my basic training, suddenly I think there was maybe 30 of us or 40 of us in front of a physical training instructor. But when I went to battalion, suddenly there's 90 or 100 of us taken by one or two guys. I mean, it's, guys and girls actually at that time, I remember. And it was amazing. Your control, your knowledge, your confidence, your expertise and professionalism. But you can train, you'll be taking lower end soldiers right up to the high end infantry soldiers. It's quite a diverse skill set to do. And I guess that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have got a diverse skill set you're using in the civilian realm as well. You touched on something there about gymnastics. And I wanted to just quickly go into that. What has gymnastics got to do with training a soldier? And the context is, I always tell people the Army knows how to train humans really well, eating really well, sleeping really well, and doing hard exercise in order to be able to fight. I mean, the motto of, I think, the PTI call was be fit to fight. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what is gymnastics? Why do you do that in your primary training?
It was probably taken out of the curriculum around 2004, I think. But I actually see it as a real benefit, and it was kept in there for all those times because the gymnastics. So there's the tramp, or there's the low floor, the low box, the high box, the tramp, the parallel bars. So, and you had to, on your course, you had to achieve something like out of 190 volts, you had your disciplines, you had to get 60%. So you practice all night. And if you weren't that good, you had to make sure you're good. So, but you got flexible from it. I've never been so flexible in my life. When you got to jump over a high box from a tramp and get your legs spread over the thing and try and get over it. Geez, it's lucky I don't pull something and never walk again. But, very disciplined. It sort of did make you realize, and it put you into your into sort of a realm of your body not knowing where it is. So, but it was phased out, which was a shame because it actually provided a lot of humor. There's a lot of good stories that come out of the courses with guys taking each other out, hitting a box, not even making an attempt. But it just was a discipline that you had to really maneuver and get good at if you weren't good at it. And had to be flexible, very disciplined, and your body had to be in a position of awareness at all times. So the crossover was I thought was great.
Now, I've sucked you in a bit with that question, bit of a loaded question, because one of the most capable special forces operators that I worked with, Handsome Rob, who we both know, was an ex-gymnast. And whenever we had a challenge of any kind, one example was the obstacle course. None of us could get up over that wall with body armor. So he just got down on all fours. We all jumped up over him and he could get himself up.
Yeah.
So he was the most functional operator in that as a warfighter that I knew, and he was absolutely brilliant. I'm glad that you guys learned that. I'm disappointed to hear they've phased it out, but it is part of, maybe we will go in the later in the show about exercise progression and in the future. It's about functionality, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And it did build a strength component inside of you that, you know, you had to have, and you carry that on into the, once you become a PDI back in the camps, you made sure that you maintain it. I didn't go and practice high vaults and that, but it was something that you learned through discipline and agility and all that, to make sure that your body was always aware of where it should be. So it was a really good tool, I thought.
You said an interesting word there, discipline. What does that mean to you, Scotty? Because you used an interesting context in that sentence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people would probably say under my tenure as a PDI that I can say many words that they've said about me, but and I actually, my partner now, Emma, I took her on basic. I didn't even realize she was in the basic. And a lot of the times I actually didn't know I was taking anyone in any class I took. All I was focused and disciplined on making sure that I provide the best product available to anyone. I never cared who was in the class, because if I got out of that sort of sync, I would then become distracted, and that's when things fall apart. So discipline for me has been a real key to me going forward, and just understanding that, you know, if you're not disciplined yourself, then how do you expect those around you to be? And my goal was always provide a product that was the best I could possibly deliver every time.
Yeah. Yeah, professional standards, and it comes back to that unrelenting pursuit of excellence, the higher standards of self-discipline that we have in the unit that you brought to that. Perhaps that brings us to the first question. I did actually write some decent questions out for once in a show. You know, what was it like going from the regular army as a physical training instructor to turning up to one NZSAS group and taking those guys? What's that major differences that you can talk about there?
It was always a goal of mine. So after primary course, my goal in my head was I want to be the head trainer for the SEs. That was my God-given goal. No matter what, I was going to get that. And I worked my career towards that, and I was just lucky or fortunate enough to have that position. And unluckily, or not unluckily, but someone else couldn't come up after my 3 years, and I got to stay on for another 3. So I was there for 6. It was, yeah. The difference is, so I've trained New Zealand sports teams in league, softball, car race drivers, MMA fighters. I went searching between the time that I've becoming a PDI and going to the unit, searching for something in my life that gave me a sense of professionalism, that I'm now in this realm, in this culture, and this is where I want to be, and this is where it should be like. But I never found that in any New Zealand sports team I took, or any individual I took.
Right.
There's some individuals, the likes of the Jesse Royal, who was a chef in the army, who went on to play for Penrith and then on to the Warriors. You know, he was probably one of the most disciplined guys I've ever worked with. You told him to do something, he'd do it to the absolute T, and he'd be on his clock waiting for that 1 second to come. And he's, you know, he was and he deserving of where he went in his career, and, you know, where he got to. But I really never come across anything that was to my expectations in any sports team. And so, you know, I was searching for that. This is not what I expect in professionalism. And so when I got to the unit, it put me at ease and really made me aware that, yeah, this is where I've always been searching for, and I feel this is where I belong.
So to ask the question in a slightly different way, and FYI, Jesse Royal, I know that name. He was in Timor with me, and he was the best cook that ever cooked for us.
Yeah.
So as far as discipline
man.
goes, he was amazing. Nice guy.
Yeah, it was. Very good guy.
What's it like actually training guys in the unit compared to training regular force soldiers?
and that's probably one thing has stood out to me. The guys are great. You know, there's some very fantastic athletes who are just mentally driven and want to win at all costs. But that's not really, when I've sort of looked at it, it's not really what drove that unit. And you look at the unit, so their emphasis on PT is one of the most important factors in their daily job. So PT every morning, 8 o'clock, no matter what. If you're not training, if you're injured, you're still down there doing your rehab. There was no second guessing yourself, or should I go or should I stay back at work and do what I need to do so I can go home early? And that led from the top. So there's the officers, the CO, the RSMs, they were all there doing whatever PT, but they were still there. And most of the time the bosses were in PT class. And there was very highly competitive sort of environment to win at all costs. And for us, we only earn respect by being at the front. If you were a PDI that was coming in last, then your actions deemed your sort of accountability and your respect within the peers. So I was doing 6 classes a day, and at the end of the day, you still, with D squadron coming in at 3 o'clock, still had to be at the front to show that but then I manipulated the class to make sure that if I wasn't coming first, I'd turn the class around so I could be first. But what that does is, what that brings into that level of professionalism is, it's not just the PT. They understand that PT is important for the wealth of the health and the well-being of each individual. But what it's creating is creating unity, trust. It's creating those peers to know that their bosses are with them doing the hard yards, building resilience, building discipline, building behaviors that they may encounter on the battlefield, because I think PT is one of the most closest aspects of any form of training you can get, except for live rounds, shooting and mock battles. But that there puts you under a lot of fatigue, a lot of pressure, a lot of making decisions on the spot. And if it's designed well and conducted well, you're getting that full capacity of all these types of behaviors and experiences that's going to help you in the battlefield. So when these guys would do PT, they're all doing it together. So they have each other's back. They know if they do go over to battle, that each and every individual in that team is deserving to be there, because they've been doing the yards to get there.
Yeah.
And so it's the respect, the loyalty, the ownership, the leadership there, and it's ingrained in them, and it's built from the top, and it's a priority. And I that's what I loved about it. And it's not because I was a PDI. I saw that they didn't have meetings at 8 o'clock, so then officers couldn't go to PT. They didn't have any. It was always the God-given rule: 8 till 9 was PT, and you better be there. And it wasn't down to the bosses going in to find out where you were if you didn't go. It's your peers that would hold you accountable. So it's a very, very, I enjoyed that side, because it wasn't hard for me to plan sessions, because I knew they were always going to turn up. So, but then you look on the RS side, they've got a completely different, and I still hear it today, and it's very sad, they think PT is not a priority at all. So they'd rather have a meeting and can PT or do a parade or do a training exercise rather than have PT. Or now you're getting a lot of senior COs, which are sergeants and above, and officers not even attending PT with their soldiers, because they believe that they're too busy, and they believe by not turning up, they're showing that they're busy, but they're actually losing what it's actually designed to be. And their peers are now looking at them going, oh, cool. If you can't make it, and then you tell us to do other stuff, what respect do I have for you for that? So PT is not just a tool for fitness, and I know a lot of people are scared of it, but it's actually a huge element to all encompassing of the values and the ethos and culture of building a unit and a team that's so close. Because if you go through the hard yards, and I believe RF PT should be 5 days a week, not just 3, and they'd even do 3 nowadays. They'll always use PT as a can. And like my partners on the Warrant Officers course starting in August, there's only 2 PT sessions in a whole 8 weeks. Now, that we're trying to build leaders, and we want the warrant officers of today to be able to attend PT with their peers and show their face. They don't have to be the fastest, but we only have 2 sessions on a warrant officers course. So something's just not right, I believe. And there's so many things you can take out of PT that I believe the unit has done really well and cemented that in the culture, but the RF have just missed the beat. And I've constantly said that. And I don't, you know, there'd be probably a lot of backlash because they only see it that war fighting is the key. But what do you need to be a elite soldier or to survive in a battle? You need to be fit, resilient, have trust of your peers, have each other's backs, and know that each person left and right of you is going to have yours as well. And that can only be done by being at PT and going through the absolute heartaches that sometimes it brings.
Yeah, look, PT at the unit taught me so much. Another thing just stood out there when you're talking about officers, and then particularly the warrant officers course with Emma going on that. I remember I was a soldier for an OCS course. That's for people listening, that's Officer Cadet School. And I'll never forget, we're out with the packs and having to go a certain distance. It's very hard physical labor. And Dougie Grant, I'm just saying the name because it has stuck in my head, but I believe Doug Grant became the Sergeant Major of the Army. Is that correct?
No, Doug Grant, no.
Oh, no, not Dougie Grant. Sorry, there's Douglas. Douglas is the surname.
Clive Douglas, yep.
Clive Douglas, thank you. Dougie is the thing that stood in my head. I didn't know the guy. I was a very young soldier. Sure. And he was saying to these officers, look, you don't have to be right at the front, but don't be last.
Mm.
And I thought, what a great thing. You don't have to be the hard charger by yourself and forget everybody else and try and be number one. You just had to not be last. You had to be shown to do your best, you know?
Yeah. Well, leadership, I believe, is a lot still, and it hasn't changed in years, is leading by not the front, but leading through actions. And so being there and present with your people, doesn't matter if they're a private or a staff sergeant, you're a warrant officer, whatever, you know, and probably people don't understand the ranks a lot in here, but, you know, it doesn't matter how old or who you are, even if you are injured, you're still down at the gym at the same time as your unit doing PT.
Yeah. And
that's what I loved about the unit. There's no second guessing or using an opportunity to excuse yourself because you had a meeting or, you know, something serious, they never turned up, but then you respected that to know that it actually must have been important because they didn't come.
Yeah.
But no one questioned that stuff. But in RF, they're using the opposite. They're looking for any out. And I truly believe it's because, one, they believe they're busy, so it shows that they're busy, but they've lost all respect. Two, they're actually in fear of turning up because they may get shown up by those that are younger or, you know, but who cares? Just, you know, Emma, to her credit, she goes to PT all the time and people actually understand that and see it. And she's the only one there out of so many senior COs. And it frustrates me but the PDIs also need to be going around these units and holding people accountable. But it's from the top. If they're not pushing it and making people accountable and they're going there themselves, then how can you expect those below them to do it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I interviewed a really cool cat last week, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, and he runs a show called Acta Non Verba. It took me a bit to figure out what the hell that meant, but I think it means actions, not words.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great point. And that's kind of what you're saying there, Scotty.
Yeah.
I'd like to try and finish off around this question. It may be tough for you because we're both a bit older now. Can you think back to your first PT session at 1NZ SAS group? What was that like, standing in front of that squadron and taking that session?
I knew a few of the boys, which was quite good. So I, not so many, but a few of them. And I got set up by Red Robinson, my predecessor. He was there originally before me.
Yep.
And he was a runner. So all he did was run. So
tell me about it, mate.
I said to myself, right, I'm going to do his program for a month to see how this actually works. If it works, so we're going to carry on with it. Yep. I must have covered over 130 Ks in the first month. Or no, sorry, first week. I was actually shattered. I've never run that much in my life. But what I was doing, and then nothing gets ready, he was fantastic when he was there and he got a lot of respect. But I just didn't see any benefits to the stability and I'm a specific trainer. I like to go into the depths of each unit, what each individual needs and required to be better at their job. Couldn't care less about their physical makeup. It's what they need to do. But if it is the physical makeup, then we'd work on that. And so I think that was I think it was a 12K run and I got absolutely blown out of the water. And I think I remember running with the cycle in the morning, and I was puking in my mouth, trying to show them that I was being sick because I hadn't run for that hard or that long in bloody months. And I thought I had trained enough for it. And because I was even getting the units I was taking in Linton, they were going to help me get ready for this session. And they're like, what the hell was this guy on about? I remember puking in my mouth twice, and I just couldn't even let it out because I had to swallow it back because I didn't want them to see that I was sick.
Oh,
And yeah, that was a wake-up call. And I was shattered after that first month. So his program got ripped up, and we revised the whole thing.
Red Robinson, yeah, I've got some stories about him, but he made us what we were as the original counter-terrorist team in 2005.
Yeah,
he was absolutely amazing. We played a trick on him, so you might be interested in this. We would run in body armor and gas masks a lot of the time. Unbeknownst to us, he probably had the plates taken out of his body armor.
Oh, he would have, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the gas mask, one of the boys put a tea bag between the filter and the mask.
Yeah.
So for people listening, he just can't breathe. It's like sucking your own CO2. And he was getting worse and worse. He wouldn't slow down. He was just getting worse and worse. He couldn't figure it out. And then he finally took it off, and he just spat the dummy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the worst thing when you want to try it with the PDI, because it's like I was there for my third year, and then you guys come in and did me over, beat the crap out of me, put me in the back of a van, put me in hot colds for about 2 hours just to get me back for all what I'd done to you. But then the next day I was meant to leave. The CEO comes down and says, "Nah, you're staying for another 3 years." The look on your faces when I walked into the theatre, everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm here to make your lives hell for another 3 years. So you never beat us.
Oh, well done, mate. Well done. Well, on that, as you're talking, I remembered I'd been actually interviewed on a show, and I think they titled it "Stories from the Kill House." I never thought I'd be talking to you, Scotty, because I told a story about you. Do you remember the first time we had you in the Kill House?
Yeah, that was because it's the set. I wanted to go to every unit or every sort of section and working and actually experience what they did, so I can then start developing the appropriate PT for every specific thing. So I remember going to that, and I remember going to Taranaki, or was it down to was it a exercise somewhere we went to?
Yeah.
For 7 days.
Yeah,
and
I think
you guys
I started off at a mill
somewhere. And I was just amazed at what was going on. That the Q store guy was giving you chocolates when you got back from your task before you went, and then you going straight to bed. So here you were coming back and getting chocolate to boost the brain again and endorphins, and you're going to try and get to sleep as much sleep as you can get. So what the hell's going on here? And it was just 7 days of complete, because by the time you got to the fourth day, you guys were shattered.
Yeah.
So my goal had to be to try and change that mentality and do it through PT, but also through liaison with the OC and the training cells to say, why are we doing it this way when we could be doing it this way, and it's good because that's what I like about the unit. They listened to experts, not saying I was a huge expert, but they listened to people in the know and took on the advice, like selection. When I got there, I watched selection. I love observing and trying to decipher if this is the right way or is there another better way. And they were finishing their 60K on the last day, getting straight onto their packs. Boots were taken off while the medics checked their feet and then made to put their boots back on. So their feet had expanded.
Yeah.
Compression expanded back into compression, and they couldn't walk for two to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The time they come to me for cycle, their first PT session, none of them could walk or run.
Yeah.
So I just said, look, there's a creek right there. Let's put them in the creek for 10 minutes up to their knees so their feet can actually come down from the exhaustion it's had and the amount of pressure and blood that's been flowing through it. And then they're not allowed to put their boots on until the next day when they go and see the CO. So it's a whole day and a half before. And I got absolute grief from everyone. Like, we never had this in our day. They finished the selection. There was no chance of them cheating or anything. It was just helping prepare them for, and that was the mindset that was still there. And I had to try and change that thinking, because this is new age, guys. And it's not new age. It's not making them softer or harder. help them prepare, because in 2 weeks' time, we're going straight into PT. But to their credit, they accepted it, and it's now a focal point. And it's just, what I loved about it is they are ready, they can change when they see good value.
Absolutely. And so it was something I want to touch on soon, is about recovery. And I touched on that, the modern facets of fitness and performance for the modern warfighter. I'll just go back to that Kill House, because you probably don't know it from my point of view, because I'm the guy that put the rounds past your face in that room.
Oh, was there live rounds there? I didn't know, didn't hear anything. I just saw them miss and hit the roof.
Listen to this guy. So you were in a room. We didn't know you were there. We just know we got to get into this room. And our assault sergeant at the time, he's shoved all these tires between these two doors. There's one door here, all these tires here, and then another door, which never happened in real life, but it's just awkward obstacles. Anyway, we bust through this door and we blow through that door. And as I've done that, I'm first through the door. I've fallen. I've never fallen in my life. I've fallen and rolled through the door, come up on a knee, and all I've seen is I've aimed my weapon straight at you, looked at your hands, he's sitting down, nothing in his hands, looked at the other guy, hands have got a weapon, and all are still kneeling, and I put a couple of rounds into him. But I'll never forget, I was as shocked as you probably were. I was as shocked to see Scotty Cottier, the PTI, in that room.
Well, because after that, you guys, you did the first room clearance, and I was like, get on the ground, and I think you've been nice to me, all of us. And so I refused to, and then, slowly got to ground. So the badge footballs weren't happy with that, so they said, let's do one more. I said, yeah, but quickly I've got to go. So they went out and formed their own team, and they come in and must have charged the door up further, and they blew the shit out of me, and they grabbed me and threw me against the wall, pinned me against and beat the crap out of me, took me outside, tied me to the post, and left me there for the rest of the day. It was like, you baskets. That was my introduction to the, said, you want to get smart? We'll sort you out. I said, see you tomorrow at PT. But there's some great stuff. I love the fact that I was a cheeky bastard, and, I gave it as good as I got, but they have a table in the unit, and the mess it would be, they thought their table would not sit there. They're like, oi, you can't sit here. You've done 9 days. And I said, I've done 12 days, man. I've done more than you'll ever do. And where does it say that? They just hated me, and the cheekiness, but it just kept everyone grounded. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, look, it's a great place to be, great bunch of guys. I'm really glad that you came there. It was great to see the difference between you read and yourself, and obviously you made us into some formidable fitness. So maybe moving on a little bit, what's it like? What does it take to pass selection? And I asked that question from you as a PTI, but you've specifically prepped people to pass selection, both military people and straight from civilians. So that's really interesting, because that wasn't around when I was there. So without giving away selection secrets, which Moo was pretty clever to do, but what does it take to pass selection from your experience in prepping people?
Well, while I was at the PTI there, we started up that civvy from Civvy Street into the unit. So I helped in that sort of, so I had a bit of an understanding, and had a fair bit to do with the first day of selection, and I understood a lot of it. And once again, I'm so specific, and it's not worth, I understand selection's like nothing that no one will ever encounter in their lives. So you can't use it as a high performance training, or go to a gym instructor and ask them to get you ready for selection, because they can't fathom that 9 days with minimal food and minimal rest can ascertain into something that you could just build in a gym. So, these civvies had never touched a pair of boots in their lives, or a pack, and never done anything of this caliber. So the first thing you've got to do, and I'm an Arthur Lydiard favorite, and you've got to build an aerobic base, because it's 9 days, and if we get away from this short hit training, thinking that our aerobic base is strong enough, what a load of crap. They'll never survive. So to me, for these civvies, and once I left the unit, I still had quite a few that would come and approach me all around New Zealand, and I had to test them. So how you usually be on Mount Eden Hill, and at the bottom there, just as you go to the turnstiles, they've got white lines. And so they have to get all the way to the top. Once they get to the top of the summit, that's when they stop. But every white line, they have to do 10 jack jumps.
Right.
Well, there's about freaking 70 white lines. So what I'd do is I'd just sit there and just walk away and watch, and I'll count every single exercise or rep of those white lines. If they missed it if they did a 9 on one and completed 10 everything else, I'd accept them. If they missed 9 or anything less than 10 twice, I'd then let them finish it and go, can't take it. So I turn away probably around 30 people in my time.
Wow.
Because I refuse to take someone who cheats to themselves, because I'm not going to be with them every minute of the day.
Yeah.
I only gave them a program every week. We did a lot of in-depth sort of programming, and then I expect them to go away and do it. They had a diary to fill out. And if they're lying to me, then they're cheating themselves, but it's also, I don't feel anything from it either.
Yeah.
So they had to do 100 Ks in a week for 4 weeks straight before they could come back to me.
Running.
So that's up to them how they want to do it. If they want to go and do a 50K run in one day and have 6 days to do the other 50, it's fine. I don't care. But they need to show me that they've done it through the app. And what that does is teaches quite a few things. One, they have the real desire to actually do it, because who's going to run 100 Ks 4 weeks in a row and hasn't really run in their time? But I'd build them up to it. I wouldn't say go out and do 100 Ks straight away. Like this week, I want you to do 30. Next week, I want you to do 45. And so they built to that over a 6-week period. But once they hit 100, they had 4 weeks straight of 100. And that's monotonous. And that is that's time consuming. And also it's that, do I really want this or not? And so, and I use an adage. There's a guy, he's left a long time ago. He was quite a large chap in engineers. I won't say his name or anything. And he was never really a fitness person, never come to PT much, or was at the front or anything, or never be in the gym. And one day he just turned up out of the blue, and he looked fit and lean and cut, and he just passed selection. Not one person in that camp knew that he'd done selection. So he took 3 months off prior to say he's going to build a house. He went away and trained, and he didn't tell anyone what he's doing, and went up to selection and passed, and then came back and told everyone that he passed. That to me is real desire. That to me shows that that's the person that really wants it, because a lot of people do selection for the notoriety, the feeling that they are going to something that's elite and that they are going to get more accolades for it. Most of them get up there, or not most, some get up there and fail on day one, fail the RFL, because they think by going up to selection, they've already earned respect from their peers. Respect comes at the end. The respect actually comes once you've been there long enough to actually deserve to be class as a badged operator. It's not just...
I would suggest, Scotty, that it's respect for yourself, and if you're looking for any kudos, anything from someone else, you're in there for the wrong reasons, from my opinion.
That's right. Oh, you're totally right. And so a lot of questioning I do for a lot of people is, why do you want to go there? And I've always wanted to join the SAS. Why? And you ask these questions, and it comes apparent to me with a lot of questions I ask is, they actually only want it for the notoriety. They only want it for what they've seen on TV and what they've read about. And they see all the glory side, but they don't actually understand what it takes to get there. So I'll never take anyone on in that respect who's less 1% showing lesser than that. I won't take them, because I'm not wasting my time and their money for them to just think that they are special, but they're actually not.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a real desire to do selection. They say 40%, well, I'd say 60% fitness, 40% mental. And that mental is the determination at any cost to go further than you ever have before and to achieve. And the training I do can last a year. And I've created a thing called chaos training from it. And chaos training actually worked really well. I've got quite a few people around the world on it now, and it's all by texts. So I know what time they'll be. So we might say 8 o'clock over in Australia, and I'll be, 11 o'clock here. So I'll text that person. I know exactly where they live. And from there, they've got to get from whatever I text them from there to that position and around their local area.
Clever, yeah.
So I'll get in the map and find their park. Okay, you've got 12 minutes to get, and I know distancing 12 minutes to get from here to there. So over the next hour to 3 hours, they're doing something they don't know what's coming up. Well, I had some of my guys on it for 4 days straight through a text, through chaos training. And they just didn't know when it was going to end. They didn't know what was coming up next, what harebrained scheme I had. And it was really good to test. And all those 4 guys, they still completed it, and they went on, and I think 2 passed. it just is a real good tool to see how far they really wanted to go. And when they get to that thing, they have to show a photo back to me where they at to know that they are at that stage. But it's just the desire. And if you think you want to go there because you heard all about it and you haven't got that desire, then sad to say you're not going to pass. Because when the going gets tough, you've got no food in the body, the first thing you're going to do is look for an excuse, look for an out. And, you know, I had one guy on pre-selection back in the day. They used to do a 7-day pre-selection. They could go back the night before and spend time with their family, then come back on the Friday before it started on the Saturday. And I knew him well, and he came back, and I was just doing my washing in the Wairau there in the Howland camp, and he came and said, "Oh, hey man, how's your day, your break?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, no, good. Daughter's a bit sick though." I said, "Oh, serious?" He goes, No, just the flu." He did first day, he pulled off after day one, because at the end of day one, his daughter had cancer.
Holy shit.
But she didn't. No, but she didn't though. He created something in his head, an excuse, an out, to give him that relief to be able to pull off and not feel that he'd let himself down. The daughter was in my daughter's class at school, and she was there on Monday. She didn't have it, and it was not his fault. He just was absolutely under the pump, and and as you know, when you're walking by yourself and you're not focused and you're not that determined for something, you let your mind go wandering. And he allowed that sickness to become something bigger than it was, just to give him an out. It's just human behaviors.
It's interesting you said it that way. You know, he's literally let his imagination run wild to go from the flu to cancer. The reverse of that is the person who passes, who becomes a special forces operator, who is so tenacious, so mentally driven that they don't let those other things spiral out of control, and they can make their own drive and desire to win the biggest thing in their mind. It is so mental, but the physical side is so intense as well. 100 Ks is literally what the Olympic runners were doing under Arthur Lydiard.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I love that guy. He revolutionized fitness in a way, and it wasn't anything special or scientific like it is today, and it was just plain hard yards. And that's what selection's about. We can't just sit on a treadmill and expect to carry a pack and do inclines and declines to a tempo and expect to go out there in the bush and expect to pass. It has to be, you know, I had guys in the weight room with packs doing weights. So they're doing get-ups with packs on of 30 kgs. They're doing squats with packs on, one-legged squats. Very specific. No bloody headphones or anything that's not going to be on selection. So, you know, very in depth, and probably harder than actual selection. A couple of guys that have passed it come off and goes, Jesus, that was nothing. But that's what you're meant to do. Train harder than you're meant to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about this show before we had our timing. I was thinking about you and Gilly, because we got Professor Nick Gill coming on tomorrow, who is a Guinness World Record holder. The All Blacks came back last year and were in 3-day quarantine. And they arranged for Nick Gill, the other assistant coach, and Sam Whitelock to get a Watt bike. Which, for those that don't know, is an exercise bike that's very high tech. And his world record is the longest distance ever ridden in 24 hours on a Watt bike.
Oh, brilliant.
24 hours. I mean, imagine the pain cave and the dark places his mind will go there. He couldn't sit down for 2 days afterwards.
It just brings up a story. I did a boot camp or a hell camp for New Zealand's men's cycling team.
Oh, yes.
About 5, 6, 7 years ago. I can't know, longer than that. And it was at Karapiro, and so they had their bikes, and we tried to design a camp around what they'll be experiencing when they go over to Spain, I think it was. So we tried to make it so they had to buy their own food with the money, and you know, they ran out of money. They had no real idea of the realization. But on their training, I had them on their bikes, and they had to go for 45 minutes, staying above the threshold on their. Anytime they went below it, I'd come over with a loud hooter or water or slap them around the head. And it was just to distract them, and they hated it. They were just in fear. Every time I went down, they saw me coming, and I was just into them. One guy walked off and never came back. He said, this is bullshit," and left the whole group. But what it did was it's just designed to block out any noise in your head and focus so purposely on that one thing that you have to achieve.
Yeah.
And that's what selection is. Block out all those negative thoughts, and the only desire that you have is to pass, and nothing else will take over. And that's why we train harder, because we're trying to minimize pain and make it a friend of yours rather than something that you can't stand. Because if you can't stand pain, then you might as well go and just do whatever you're doing and don't even push yourself to go further.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get to experience that adversity. The reason I mentioned Gilly is because, just as you said, the fitness stuff is just basic. It's not complex. Arthur Lydiard invented his running system 1982 from memory, but around those years.
Yeah.
But what has changed is recovery. I mean, we're in the Instagram world. We're in the watching somebody on Instagram video doing some amazing exercises, and the information world is so intense and so much there. But for New Zealand SAS, and it's the same for all special forces, is basic fitness done very well. All Blacks, same deal. But recovery, you spoke about it with nutrition. You spoke about it with recovering the guys after they finished selection. I know that Skins came in, I think, either with you or around Red Robinson's change over time.
Red stuff Skins is not my thing. Put him Red. He loves Skins.
Recovery has changed a lot, and that can get an advantage. Is training, it's recovering smarter. Has that changed in your time from being a PTI to now?
No. Well, I mean, I was lucky to get a trip with the New Zealand Police League team. We went over to Jacksonville for 3 weeks league tournament, and I went to the Jacksonville NFL ground, and they're like at the bottom, but their facilities was incredible. But they had treadmills in their swimming pool with NASA type leggings while they walked.
Wow.
And that was to recover their compression. So the compression on their legs would be able to manipulate through a computer what the blood pressure was doing, and be able to squeeze or come out from, to allow the blood pressure to flow quicker. And they had all that on them. But, that was incredible, but they still last. Hang on. And I know every other NFL had that, but if we're not managing the things that we rely too much on technology and all that, we do get away from the simple things. And the best simple I can ever say to anyone is a polystyrene cup, fill it with water, put it in the freezer. And when you've got sore in your quads, your thighs, your arms, whatever, get that polystyrene cup out, rip a bit off the top so you can hold it without getting cold hands, and you rub up, don't rub down, you always rub up with the ice. And when the ice is melted, go take off more polystyrene. That's your ice. That's all it is. It's an ice massage, but you're effectively doing something that's simple and effective. But we look at all these fandangle, like, what's that bloody massage pumping machine?
The Theraguns and things. Yeah.
I mean, we could go and spend thousands on that, but if we just manage our own simplistic ways of maintaining our body with a simple polystyrene cup with ice, and just going up instead of pushing down, and we're getting out the nooks and crannies out of our body, we can actually effectively just be as good and stretch and eat well and drink lots of water.
It's really good you said that, Scotty. You're talking about applicability. It's really been what you've been saying through the whole time. People might think you're crazy going to these guys on the bikes and give them splashing the water and that, but it means on the day they're going to be so much better at what they do. But it's got to be applicable to the person. You've applied it from real life or real world skills from New Zealand SAS Group. Moving on to our third question, what's it been like for you after leaving the military? Because you're retired from the military now, I think. And what are you doing now with your leadership with Spec Force Performance Consulting and so on? Where you're at now?
So when I left, I had a desire to always own a gym. So I took that into town straight after left the unit in 2011 and started up a gym called Spec Force. I was probably one of these attitude army guys that could go out there and just create amazing success, because in the military we think that we're pretty well deserved and warranted out there, but when we get out there we're actually a very small rough diamond that no one really understands or cares about, but we think that everyone does, but they don't. So that was a big wake-up call. I remember the first day we opened, I had staff galore waiting for the open, not one person coming for a whole week. It was about $3,500 of wages gone in that week, and no one turned up.
Yeah.
And it was a huge wake up call for me. But then we grew, and we become quite a successful gym, but it's just I couldn't sustain it. And I know I hurt a lot of people's lives because it wasn't around anymore, but it was my life I'd look after.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy the gym, but the business side, it was just, the thing is, I built the product around me because I love taking classes. Everyone liked my classes, but I couldn't train anyone else to be like me to take those classes, so they never came to those people.
A bit like
in a
Paul
way,
Check as well, and a lot of the story I hear with those people that are very good at their field, Scotty. And I picked you, and you're incredibly humble, but I picked you because you're very good at what you do. Then you're stuck, aren't you? Because you can't reproduce you. So where does that go business-wise? How do you scale?
And that's where I've gone to now. So I own Specforce Performance Consultancy, and I think I found my niche, and I love it with passion. It's all about behaviours. And as a PDI, I look back and how I've learned all this is because as a PDI, you're looking at everyone in your class, you're observing form, you're ensuring that you've got eyes in the back of their head, that no one can get away with anything. And I was very good at that, I believe. And that's crossed over now into this what I'm doing now. So I'll go into a lot of companies and just observe the day. I'm watching behaviors, listening to people, how they talk to each other, watching body language, sitting in meetings and just observing everyone and anything. And it's amazing. I don't know where it comes from, but it just, everything resonates and it just comes out and it's like, wow. And so I now have found a niche, and I just believe where I'm going now with this is quite exciting.
That sounds really interesting. A little, I can draw a lot of similarities with SAS Australia. They're the same deal as the DS. It's super simple for them, just coming along and throwing these people through the selection course, but they're really picking up on human behaviors. That's why it's exploded on TV, because you see that person inside, you see that human behavior. But you're doing it in a more, not civilian, sorry, what's the word, in the corporate role. So yeah, that's phenomenal, man.
That's why I still love this stuff. So I take corporates groups at the moment, and there's not one. So I took the Warriors and the junior Warriors for 4 years for their pre-season camps. Don't say it was my fault, it was not. But one of the things I've created is a thing called accountability circuit. And so what they do is I have 6 stations around the big field and one board at the first station. And on that board is 15 exercises, and it's do 30 reps of each exercise. Every time they come to it, they do the next exercise, 30 reps. And they carry on. When they get to each cone, they do 2 get-ups and carry on, and they come back and do it again. While they're doing that, I've got the coaching staff hidden in a room with a team dedicated to them. So each time a person comes back, they're to count each one of those exercises of that person and write it down. And so at the end, now 15 exercises are shattered. These guys are absolutely blown out of the water. I mean, Cappy, I think Stacey Jones was the coach at the time of the Junior Warriors. And I said, how many do you think will be honest? And he goes, 80 to 90. I said, bullshit. I don't even, we'll see. 12% were honest.
Wow.
Because when they think no one's watching, your behavior is different, because if you think you can get away with it, you'll take shortcuts. So this is what I do now with corporates. So we do something similar, and I have the bosses watching, and at the end of it, I get them all to stand up and say, right, put up your hand if you did 30 repetitions on every exercise or whatever it is, and I only used 1 cone for the press-ups, and you waited for the next person to come, blah, blah. Most of them put their hands up. Bosses coming here with those hands up, identify those that didn't. And now they're naming and shaming and going, so you've taken accountability, no accountability for your own actions. 2, you've taken shortcuts when no one's watching. So what are you doing back at your workplace? This is what you're doing when no one's watching you. And they're like, wow, it's a huge wake-up call. And the Warriors were the same. And then for them, then those guys that hadn't cheated, I got them all on one line, and I got everyone else in the line behind them, and I beasted the ones that did the good work. Because the ones that do the bad work, if they get beasted, they think it's all over and it's all forgotten. No, I made those guys do 40-meter sprints for about 12 minutes under 30 seconds. And every time they didn't make it, which they never did, they had to go again. And I said, don't look at me. These are the guys behind you you're carrying for your whole club. These are the ones that will do nothing on the field for you, but you're doing everything for them. And you expect me to stand there and hate me? Hate them. And it just brought a real close connection between those that actually weren't doing the yards and know I'm letting everyone down. And we created something really special.
How do you do that and turn it positive in a corporate environment? This would probably be the finishing part, by the way. But how do you turn that into a positive performance enhancement for corporates there when you're figuring everybody out and seeing where people stand?
Well, a lot of people do things nowadays and you speak without knowing they've done it. They probably have done it without, it's a human behavior. Until someone tells you through an action or something that's quite significant like that, you now know. And I follow up every individual I take on any workshop. I'll follow up with them every 2 weeks or 6 months, because why do a course when you're not going to have any development from the next 6 months?
Yeah.
So I've got over 100 a week in a way I'm doing of Zoom calls with notes on every individual, but they are so appreciative because I've identified what they're doing on course, and now I'm helping them get through the next 6 months and be a better leader.
Yeah.
No one does that. Most leadership companies just do a day and then come back 6 months later and do another one.
And unfortunately, I learned this a few years ago. Apparently, all you take out of a lecture is 10% of any lecture.
That's right.
It's horrendous when we're actually paying for it.
Yeah. So no, I think that's been a key and that's my passion, is I love to deal with each individual and help them be a better them. And I know now through their behaviors and actions on that one day I've observed, I can now hold them accountable and use examples, and they give me examples how they've turned their lives around.
It's so true what you said, the way you're doing it with identifying people on the lower end and people on the higher end. The last bunch of guys I had a chance to train was the new commandos or counter-terrorist guys coming through. And on any section of people, you got a bell curve. The people aren't performing, the majority of people, and then that person who's like the high flyer. Well, we always had this one guy that wasn't up to speed. He was always getting slammed, getting the group in trouble, like you're sort of saying. Well, one day it just dawned on me, well, okay, I grabbed the guy that was the high flyer. I said, you, and I won't say his name, you come here, right? See that guy there? And this high flyer, he was just a natural, so high flying, it was phenomenal. He would 100% on everything. So every time he screws up, you're getting slammed. He's fine.
That's right.
The reason is because you didn't bring up to speed, because you relied on your own amazing strengths and didn't help out the team. So it was actually his strength was his weakness. Yeah.
It's very important. And that Junior Warriors is that last story I can tell is the last was a progressive overload circuit to finish the whole 3-day camp. They're shattered, and every time they didn't make the timing, they got another set of. So they had started out with 6 logs with 36 of them. The next, they didn't make that. They had 40 sandbags and the 6 logs to go next time to the same cone, and just keep multiplying. In the end, they're carrying so much weight, it wasn't funny. They had to make the timing. And I remember the 4th time they came back, they hadn't made the timing. Stacey Jones jumps in and says, "Nah, that's it. No more. Cut it." And they're like, "Yes." And I looked at them and said, "Who the F are you to tell me what the fucking, get out of my face?" This is to Stacey Jones. So he walked away with his tail between legs, and they're like, "Oh my God." And they're always only going to do 5 anyway. When they come in, I admit at the time, and there's tears galore, they'd finished. And Stacey comes to me and goes, "Why'd you do that?" And I said, "Because if I'd allowed you to do that, every time on the field that something gets hard, they'll always look to you for you to get them out of the trouble. It's not up to you on the field, it's up to them." And the last thing I was doing to them, I said, you got 8 minutes to go in the grand final. You are on your line. You're up by 4. Now you need to defend the line. 8 minutes, let's go. Well, ironically, they got in the grand final. They had 8 minutes to go. They're up by 4, and they defended their line and won the grand final that year.
Wow.
I don't know how crystal ball happens, but it was just ironic that it actually happened. And then the guy on the Sam company's last name, he said, "How did you defend for so long?" We'd actually been there already. We'd done this in our pre-season. So it was quite a cool sort of story.
Absolutely. Always a little further. You can always do more, but if you're not shown it, by someone like you, Scotty. And you know, you've given some rough examples and you're a rough and tumble guy, but if you're not shown it by someone like you and gone through that adversity, and adversity apparently is a gift, then you won't know your ability to perform way beyond what you think you can do. And we're so lucky being in the military. You went through the challenge of joining the army, but you went through the challenge of physical training instructor selection and the course. You've been through that adversity over and over, and look at where you're at. You're helping others find out about their performance enhancement, their performance, and overcoming adversity themselves. Look, I'll put everything in the show notes for everyone, where to find you for Spec Force Performance Consulting and so on. But do you have any socials you need to speak about, or is it just straight up with the
I haven't even come on
website?
the website yet. I've just been too busy, and I'm probably quite happy to go under the radar. But yeah, I know I need to get all that, because that's not my marketing side, is my social media aspect. But yeah, just email me. I think you got email there if anyone wants me. But I'd say they'll be running for the hills after this one.
Mate, it's great to see your success. You know, that's how I reached out to you, because where you've come from and where you're at now is brilliant. Amazing to try and start a gym in Auckland when you're versus Les Mills, which is pretty much the most successful gym chain in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, congratulations on all that you've done, Scott. It was a true honor and a lot of pain getting trained by you.
Well, yeah, you're the first person to have said that. I really appreciate it, and thanks for bringing me on here. It's as I said, I keep questioning you, why do you want me on here when I look at all the caliber of people that come before this day, and I'm like, jeepers, I'm not even close to these guys. Why? You run out of people.
I say to people ask me about special forces and fitness and all this stuff, and literally I say to them, look, we're Olympic level athletes, and then you're the guy that trains them. You're the guy that gets them to that fitness standard. And I say to people, I interview the best people in the world at what they do. And despite your humility, which is a credit to you, Scotty, you were the head trainer for New Zealand Special Forces. There's not many of those units in the world. Therefore, that makes you the best, one of the best trainers in the world. So thank you for your time, my friend. It's great to see you. And I hope everybody's got something good out of this as well.
No, it really did. Loved it. Bring up some old stories again.
Awesome, mate. Well, I'll hit pause and we'll have a chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Cheers.